Seemingly random people are going missing. However, dark burn marks are found at each of their last known locations.
What Mulder and Scully find is eventually tied back to one man. Is he a serial killer? Is he seeking revenge? What is his motivation, and what is he doing to these people?
This is not happening.
They waited 3 hours before sending hotel security up. The door was locked, security chain fastened, and when they broke in, no Patrick Newworth.
Windows?
Locked from the inside. We're 6 stories up, no fire escape. No way in or out of this room. Agent Scully, what are you looking at?
The heat register.
You don't think anyone could have squeezed in there?
You never know. You guys turn up any forensics evidence at all?
Just this, sir.
Scully, look at this.
What is it?
We don't know. The hotel claims it wasn't here before Mr. Newworth checked in, and there were similar burn marks at each of the previous crime scenes.
Was Patrick Newworth a smoker?
No. According to his wife, he loathes cigarettes.
Well, it's strange for a man who worked for a tobacco company.
Did you run a test on it?
Yes, sir. It's mostly carbon with some potassium and trace minerals.
Well, it could be the residue from burnt human flesh.
Does this look like an arm to anybody?
An arm?
What are you thinking, Mulder?
This burn mark, it's right where I'd be if I was standing here answering the door, right?
Yes.
And I wouldn't be looking out the peephole unless there was something to look at, would I?
That makes sense.
Well, welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Mike, and with me, as always, my good friend Andrew. How are you today, sir?
I'm real good, Mike. The light is nice on me right now. I don't know if you can see it, but I've got a nice pallor. It's, maybe a filter I've added. I don't know, but the light is good.
Is it hard? Very hard light going on?
No, it's medium hardness, maybe slightly soft even.
Do you have a light box, a diffuser going on?
No, it's just generally a big light panel. It gives me a lot of light.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, you look good, sir.
Well, and you look very good too. I think the light is also soft on you.
A little bit.
Yeah. Is it a coincidence that we're dropping all those light terms?
Yeah, I think it's pure coincidence that,
it must be pure
we're talking about light today.
Yeah.
Because we are talking about the episode Soft Light, for those of you who did not get it. So, yeah, we are.
Is the podcast's title also Soft Light? I mean, is that also?
Pretty much. So, yeah, episode 23 of 25, Andrew. We are right here. We're right at the end.
Yeah. Soon we'll never have to watch these episodes again.
At least not for a while.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, this is a good an interesting X-File here. We got a killer guest star this week, and I'm a big fan of Tony Shalhoub in just about everything he does. I first came across him, as probably many people did, on the sitcom Wings when I was a kid.
Yes.
So it was exciting to see him do something more dramatic. And yeah, I think he nails it in this episode personally.
Well, he's a very capable actor. I mean, I've enjoyed him on Mrs. Maisel. And of course, he had a long run as Monk, which is another classic character that he did. He's just one of those great character actors that can do a lot of different kinds of roles. And what's really exciting is that we have him on the episode to talk about his experiences on the show and other shows. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Tony Shalhoub.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Oh, wait a second. He's not actually here.
No,
Did that fall through? Did that interview request fall through?
We were right there. We just couldn't come up with the money.
Oh, he backed it because his ask was pretty big.
Yeah, that's all right.
Sorry, I thought you'd had that all planned. I thought that was the head in the meeting.
No, I'm sorry. I forgot to relay. We didn't get him.
Oh,
I know it's tough to do that live on the air, but
right,
we didn't get him.
You're going to cut all this stuff then, right? We're not going to share that with the audience.
Not a problem.
That would be embarrassing.
We don't want to let them know what massive failures we are.
Well, The other big deal about this episode is that it's the first one written by Vince Gilligan.
Yes, that is in my notes.
Is that why you like it so much? You always go on about this episode, how much you like it.
I don't know that I do. If you say I do, I believe you. I guess I didn't realize I do. I enjoy it a lot, and I would have to say that part of the excitement is that it's Vince Gilligan's first episode, but I wouldn't say that this one is like, oh man, I gotta watch Soft Light, or I think a lot of it has to do with Tony Shalhoub and Chester Banton. He's just so good, and the dynamics that happen in the episode. There's a lot of stuff that I really like. There's a lot of stuff like with Mr. X and Mulder.
Oh, yes. Another one of your crushes,
I think this episode has a lot of ingredients to be really enjoyable for me. Would I say this is something that a classic X-Files fan is going to be like, oh yeah, you got to watch Soft Light? I don't think so. I don't think it's bad by any regard. I'm not going to skip how I feel about it right now. I think it's a good episode. I enjoy it, but it's probably not on a lot of people's top lists, and especially in Vince Gilligan's column, this is probably going to be at the bottom, right? Given what he's written, or close to the bottom, not because it's bad, but because he's got so many good ones. it's like
true. Yeah. I mean, I think he's cutting his teeth on this episode. There's a lot that works. It's kind of a strange concept, though. So
it's out there.
Yeah, I think it's really good, but there's definitely, I mean, we'll get into it, obviously, but there's definitely an element to this episode which is like, is that really, I mean, obviously it's so sci-fi, it can be whatever it wants to be in terms of possibility, but it just feels like that doesn't feel like that could be a thing, but okay.
Yeah, and that's I actually stop at one point in my notes here, and I was going to ask you a question, but we'll get to it. And I think it probably goes along with how you're feeling right now.
All right. Well, also interesting to note, the director here, James A. Contner, and this is a one-off for him. Another case where they have these Monster of the Weeks that they just throw a random director onto, clearly because like Bowman and Manners, they're doing the heavy lifting on the mythology episodes, on some two-parters. They can't do everything. Right. It's a lot of work. So they need to bring in some other folks to do these. And I guess he's not going to come back, Mr. Contner, and do other ones. But this episode is a capable job, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Technically, it's fine. And I would actually argue that there's some really clever usage of light appropriately. And whether that's the DP's job or not, but I think the director has some say in that, especially given how prominent that aspect of this episode is. So.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, yeah. You want to get started here?
I want to get started. I want to find the appropriate pun to begin our sequence. Shall we turn the lights on to this episode? Shall we shine some light?
Let's shine the light. Yes, there we go.
Yeah.
Let's shine the light on the inner workings of this episode.
Let's shine some soft light onto the episode.
Not too hard. No shadows.
Not too hard.
Well, we open on the Hotel George Mason. Camera tracks down a long, dimly lit hallway and peers at door 606. A businessman is taking off his tie and readying himself for bed after a long day at work. The elevator dings and a light-footed, disheveled man steps out. He begins treading down the hallway at pace, frantically searching the room numbers. As the businessman lays down to rest, he then hears the man outside knock at the room across the hall, shouting for someone named Morris. He doesn't get an answer. He desperately wants to speak to him. The light next to the businessman dims for a moment, and he gets up. The commotion has piqued his interest, and he goes to investigate. He peers out of his peephole to see the man just outside. Receiving no answer still and unsure what to do, the disheveled man takes one step back. The light from the hallway casts a deep silhouette of him, and as he backs up, it slips under the curious man's door. A brilliant light flashes from under the apartment door, and he's gone. Surprised and seemingly understanding what just happened, the man in the hall quickly unscrews one of the lights in the hall, but he's too late. He runs off in fear. we get one last glimpse of his shadow ominously leaving the frame. Credits.
Mm. I do dig that moment of the shadow, being the villain.
Yes. Surprisingly, Andrew, given how highly I think of this episode,
yeah,
that actually strikes me wrong, given what we know about the rest of the episode.
Okay, please elaborate.
Because it implies the shadow is conscious. When we last see Chester running down the hallway in fear, obviously he's not slowly walking away, so it looks like the shadow has sentience of some sort in that shot.
I think it's the slow-mo effect. They lean heavy into slow-mo.
Okay, I just wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if it's supposed to, because I believe the original script had the shadow having sentience. I just didn't know if they forgot to cut that scene or what. But it didn't jive with the exiting of Dr. Benton. But I guess it might be a slow-mo shot.
Well, I think technically that is what it is. It wouldn't surprise me that the original script gave the shadow sentience, because later on, Benton says it doesn't care who it kills. So he is ascribing sentience to it. But interestingly, those are the only points. I mean, I attributed that to him being a little bit crazy at this point, lack of sleep and just really strung out with the events that have happened here. So I'm okay with that. But I never imagined this as being some sort of demon shadow. I always thought of it as this is just some weird law of physics that is manifesting through this poor schmuck who is now, a roving weapon of his own bidding. He doesn't want this, but this is now the role he finds himself cast in, which is fascinating. And I'll have some questions about this later, but I feel like you want to continue.
Well, feel free. If you got something to add, please do so.
Oh, I'll bring it up later. Like you, I got some notes.
All right. So Mulder and Scully get off an elevator as they discuss the case. One of Scully's old students, Kelly Ryan, has become a detective. This is Kate Twa, seen in Genderbender as the female version of the antagonist. She is reaching out for help in this case, but she is trying to hide the fact that she's asking the FBI. They make introductions, and Mulder's reputation has preceded him. Apparently, Scully's been doing some talking.
I'll talk to you later.
Patrick Newirth has gone missing. He's a Morley Tobacco exec. He arrived on the evening train, but hasn't been seen since. Mulder notices the untouched glass of scotch next to the bed. He apparently missed a meeting, and the hotel security was notified. The door was locked and chained, windows locked and shut. There's a cute little nod to Squeeze as Scully checks the heat register, and Kelly notices. The only evidence in the room is a dark patch on the rug by the door. It wasn't there before he checked in. They ran tests, and it's mostly carbon and potassium with trace minerals. It could be residue from burned human flesh, Scully says. Interesting that she's the first one to say that.
Yeah.
Mulder then makes a leap here and describes the scorch mark on the ground with what looks like, I guess, an arm and a hand, noting this is exactly where someone would stand to look out the peephole. The investigation moves to the hallway. He immediately keys on the light that's not lit. He taps it and notices it's loose. He asks Kelly to get it dusted for prints. He wants the prints checked against all hotel employees and guests, and he wants the name of the last missing person she encountered. This was Margaret Wisniewski. He asks her if this is her first case and why they assigned it to her, but she says no one else wanted it because it's just a missing persons case and is probably not going to end up on the first page.
Well, clearly there's nothing to look at in this case. Move along. Just
move along. Yeah. Everyone's just looking for fame at her department.
Well,
that's the only reason to be in law enforcement. You just want the fame and notoriety. Yep. Mulder, he lays a line on her. I wouldn't be too sure about that. He's got ideas. So curiosity getting the better of her. She asks what his hypothesis is so far, and he says spontaneous human combustion. As the agents leave, they exchange a quick, lighthearted argument about the reality of the idea, and Mulder quickly dismisses Scully's legitimate concerns.
Classic. I like this scene. It's the X-Files version of the two-pipe problem. Like he's in his own room. He's killed by no means or disappeared with no obvious means. There are very few clues except for this really one crazy clue. And I do love the callback to Toombs with the heat register. That's very smart.
Yeah, that was nice.
And I love the little bit of investigating with Mulder looking at the light bulb and recognizing that there's this one thing that's out of place. Again, I think you and I both love these moments where the investigators actually use their investigation skills. They are doing something. Yeah. And there is a lot of that in this episode. They're not just tourists. So automatically already a better episode than some.
Absolutely. And I just like almost the fluidity of the investigation. As they're talking, they're going through motions, and you can see the wheels turning in Mulder's head, and he, being that expert investigator and of course the protagonist of the TV show, he has to find the answers. So, but I just think it's actually done really well how they start in the apartment, and then he's putting this together, the scorch marks by the peephole, and he brings the investigation out to the hallway. I think that's an interesting and believable aspect. You know, this is a guy who has spent his career besting other agents in being investigative. So I think that's a really cool nod to his capabilities.
It is good. I'm a little bit disappointed that they cast Scully as the immediate skeptic. I mean, the burn marks or whatever that is at the foot of the door, that's the obvious clue. Like, I don't understand why she would be resistant that this would be something significant. I feel like she would be the one to say, you know what, those are compounds you might find in the human body, or at least be a bit more curious as to what this is. It's a weird-ass clue, and the fact that it's going to show up in other crime scenes should be the tip-off that this is not just a missing persons case.
Yeah, she does kind of dismiss his, obviously it sounds ridiculous, but spontaneous human combustion goes very well with her assertion that
that's right.
The remnants are what could be human flesh, burnt human flesh. So it is a little out of character, maybe just kind of disjointly written in that aspect. But yeah, you know, you got to fail somewhere sometimes.
It's true. I mean, they are opposite characters in some ways. By design. Yeah.
It's like they can never be on the same level. So ever.
Yeah.
Later that night, they arrive at a residential house, Wisniewski's house, and notice the driveway light is also out. Mulder inspects it, and it too is unscrewed. He uses a small pen light to find fingerprints on it. Scully lets out a line about darkness covering a multitude of sins. A great line for the episode. And in general, I would say, Andrew.
Yeah, definitely.
They enter the residence to find another scorch mark on the floor of the hall. Again, they worked at Morley Tobacco. Coincidence?
It plays absolutely no role in the overall context of the episode.
It's a weird red herring because they immediately cast it aside, and Mulder's like, I don't think it matters. In a few more minutes, I think it is just that, it's a coincidence. So I know why they're focusing on, you know, obviously.
I will say that I didn't appreciate the connection that Vince Gilligan's trying to draw here between the Morley employees and the train station, and like I didn't understand the relevance. I mean, I got that his colleague Gale is the one who gets poofed, you know, accidentally but intentionally. And then these other Morley employees are almost accidental, but I don't think there's enough data there for me to go, aha, I understand, which is perhaps a bit of a failing of the episode.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand the relevance of Morley Tobacco in this case, other than it's a name that we see with Cigarette Smoking Man cigarettes and go, oh, is there a connection there? But, I mean, there isn't even. Again, a huge red herring. Yeah. Maybe on purpose to keep us guessing until things become more relevant later.
Yeah. So the first missing person was Gail Ann Lambert, who worked at Polarity Magnetics. The detectives have not found any prints in her house, so Scully wonders what the prints outside the house could mean to Mulder. He checks the garbage. It's full. He pulls out an Amtrak ticket, and it's dated March 17th, the same day she disappeared. They piece together that Patrick Newworth came into town by train as well, possibly Gail Ann Lambert. Mulder posits a theory that maybe the people aren't just disappearing, they're possibly being hunted. Spontaneous human combustion isn't so spontaneous. Oh boy. So we go now to the train station.
And I figure the only reason that we have the connection with Margaret Winecki, or Wisniewski, whatever the name is, the only reason we've got that connection is to link us from there to the train station where we can start connecting the dots to Banton.
Yeah. And I think that's really it. They're talking about places of employment and how they're moving about the city, and I think that's really all the Morley thing is about. It's just like, okay, these two people worked here. That's coincidental, but they all came by train. I don't know if it's just like a long-winded way to get us to realize they all took a train. And that maybe...
sure, but then why does I'm not sure whether it's actually explained why Banton comes to this house, unscrews the light bulb, either before or after or during the death of Margaret Wisniewski. I don't understand the Morley connection here.
It is very convoluted. I will give you that.
All right. Terrible episode. I don't know why you like it.
Terrible. It's terrible. Fucking awful. The unsettled man from the pre-credits scene is sitting in a large station alone as cleaning crews work the area. He has bags under his eyes, still extremely nervous. As one janitor crosses his path, the man stares at the floor, terrified until the man passes him. He leans forward, elbows on his knees, and relaxes, continuing to study the floor as his cigarette burns between his fingers. He stands up, and with a quick shot of the floor, we see there are no shadows around him. As he walks into the street nearby, continuously he's checking for his shadow. Taking a dark alley, the man is suddenly stopped by a patrol car for suspicious loitering.
A little stop and search here for no reason. Station, I got a man smoking a cigarette in an alley. I'm going to check it out.
I'm going to check this guy out.
Yeah.
He's got no business being in a public area.
I think he might be foreign.
I'm going to need backup.
Yeah, I'm going to need backup.
This man is not white. We're going to need more than one squad car.
That hair has a vaguely ethnic look to it, so I'm going to be drawing my weapon as soon as possible.
Man, and the unfortunate thing is the initial cop is black. So
yeah, they rescued the scene a little bit there, but again, why? Why is he
right?
Sir, you can't.
This is backwards. Yeah. You can't smoke back here. So immediately, the man runs. He's flanked by yet another squad car. Guns drawn, both cops, one black, one white, approach him cautiously. And I will say at this point, the white cop is Collins from, several episodes. And then most notably, Robert Patrick Modell.
Oh,
Pusher.
Yep, Pusher, yes.
The man begins pleading that they stay away from him. The situation doesn't calm down, despite his attempt to keep them away and their attempts to get him to come to them. The man, hands up, continues to warn them. The officers are now in front and behind him. The man cast in a single streetlight. As one officer steps forward, the crazed man steps back, not noticing his distance to the other officer. With a flash, the black officer, of course, Andrew, goes first. He falls into the earth as the man's shadow absorbs him, leaving an electric black puddle behind. The other officer, horrified at what he's just seen, moves in closer, but unfortunately onto another cast shadow. He's gone. The man is shielding his face in fear, proving he was doing nothing malicious. He's horrified about what has just taken place. Now, Andrew.
Yes, sir.
This is probably my biggest glaring mistake in this episode.
Okay. Oh, not yours personally, an episode mistake that you are noting.
An episode mistake I am noting.
Okay.
So I'm gonna walk us through the scene here.
This is important.
We have two cops flanking this one man. So they are essentially 180 degrees away from each other. So opposite ends.
Standard operating procedure is to put your partner in your own crossfire, first of all.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So there's that. Absolutely. Yeah. And how can the shadow absorb the first cop? And then the other cop, who is, again, 180 degrees around the crazy man, get absorbed by his shadow as well.
Well,
there's only one light. He only clocks one light. There's no indication of another light. When we see Chester step out of the darkness, when they've got him in their crosshairs, he steps out of the darkness. He clearly looks at one light, and we see it with a quick shot of the camera.
Yeah.
Then when the camera's back on his face, he looks to his right briefly.
Yeah.
Could be indicating another light, but I don't buy it. So we are led to believe there's only one light.
Well, if you look at the image, like if you freeze frame it, he's only got one shadow.
Yeah.
My read
and the headlights are off. I checked both cars. Both headlights are off. So there's
that would be the obvious thing would be that they specifically turn off the lights when they stop. The obvious solution to this would be both cars have their lights on, thus it's producing two shadows. But I will tell you this about shadows. I mean, I work as a photographer, so I'll tell you that you really only get one dark shadow when you've got one strong light. Like you could have cross lighting and produce two shadows, but the very fact that another light is shining on you will diffuse that first shadow. So if you have two cross lights, you would have two diffused shadows. There would be two shadows, but they would be diffused because the lights are canceling them out. So this whole scene doesn't make sense, mostly because when I look at the freeze frame, he's only got one shadow. So
I know
the other cops got to have run around to the other side. Like, that's the solution to this, is to run around to check his partner and go, what happened here? And then he's next to that first shadow.
Yeah, and then he accidentally steps into the shadow or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a glaring mistake for me. Just an oversight. I don't really know how, if I had to judge anyone, the director is at fault for that one.
Yeah. Well, yes, absolutely. When we then look at the scene again, he's got another shadow and the guy comes, falls through the earth into it. But I think this is a good opportunity to talk about the rules of this power, because the suggestion is, especially with the title of the episode, soft light does not create a hard enough shadow that allows this black hole to exist. But is it possible that even in a soft light shadow that he has, if you were to enter that shadow, you would still be sucked into a soft black hole? I don't know. Like, does it have to be a hard shadow for this?
I think that's what they're telling us. I think Vince wants us to believe that the power of this thing has to have definite outline capabilities here. I don't think that, because Mulder's comes face to face with him in the mental hospital, and there have to be at least obviously some shadows in that room. But I think it's like this thing does not activate unless it is 100% light and dark instead of just this haziness. But
okay, and the other rule is that it only affects organic matter, because clearly he's
not burning holes down the streets.
Like a garbage can that he walks by doesn't go through a hole in the ground. So it only affects people, possibly animals. I'm sure the testing we see at the end of the episode, they're going to find a variety of things to see what gets absorbed into his own personal black hole.
Right. I would say those are the rules. I don't think we're supposed to read anything more into it. I think the hardest part is the science, and we'll get to that. But
it's super whiffy. The other thing I wanted to clock in this episode is they tell him to lie down, and I think that he is both desperate to escape because he has this paranoia of being captured and then having his notions and ideas and things he's figured out be taken by the wrong people. So he doesn't want to be captured, but he also doesn't want to hurt these cops. So they tell him to lie down. And I thought, you know what? If he lied down, he probably would have saved these guys' lives, because there wouldn't be the long shadow. But
He is in flight mode. He obviously is not going to fight. He wants to be near no one. So, yeah, he would have saved their lives by just lying down, but he's got this overlayment of fear of government, right? So he's Mulder in a new skin. So it's a paranoia on the level that he can't trust anyone, and he's just trying to get control of this thing as best he can. And I guess he views that as simply running from anyone. So,
I mean, the real problem with this scene is that it exists at all. The fact that he's spontaneously interviewed by two policemen for the crime of walking in an alley. Like, I wish there was a little bit more setup as to why the cops decide to descend on him, even if it was the shadow conspiracy has located him and they're sending agents to go collect him. But you wouldn't send cops in that case. You'd send your highly trained retrieval personnel. So I look at this as a happenstance event, but the setup doesn't really make sense. Like, even in the 90s, you wouldn't just stop and search a guy for being in an alley looking suspicious. Like, maybe, but I just don't buy it. So they needed to have this interaction, so they laid it out. Even a few more lines of dialogue that, they've called in some complaints in the train station. He's casing the joint. We got to look it up. That would be fine. They just don't have that, and it makes it look really weird.
Well, we get kind of an answer because in the next scene, Detective Ryan is with officers studying the scene. She's frantic. She did send the officers down here at Mulder and Scully's request, and now 2 officers are dead.
Okay, so the setup is that they were looking for him. And
they were looking for something, yeah. And then because Mulder and Scully had an idea that the train station was going to be a hub for this investigation. So they did give her the information. We don't find that out until now. So it is answered for us relatively quickly. But yeah, in the moment, you're like, okay, well, they're stopping this guy for no reason.
Yeah, exactly. Even give me a moment of I see a guy matching the suspect's description.
Yeah, something like that.
Throw in a little ADR and boom, we got it.
Yeah. Mulder inquires about the fingerprint from the light bulb, but there was no match. As the agents return to their car, Scully accuses Mulder of not knowing what's going on, but Mulder points out, well, he was right about the man being here. They can actually check the security tapes, as he was likely here when Wisniewski and Neuwirth were here. So inside station security, they're going through the video surveillance, but nothing is showing. Mulder then keys in on someone sitting on a bench, constantly looking at the floor. After asking why he's doing that, Scully quips probably because the same reason he spends all of his time at the train station. A little heartless from Scully, but true.
A little judgmental.
Mulder zooms in on the man little by little and, wait for it, they enhance the man's jacket with a logo. Yeah. Polarity magnetics, giving Andrew some amazing computer action that would never be possible.
It is my favorite moment of the episode. I'm really surprised that they didn't ask the guy if he could clean that up a little bit.
Clean that up a little bit and get a complete profile.
Yeah.
That looks like Chester Banton.
Your consumer grade video security platform, that can enhance that, right? Oh yeah. We can read the first lines of a newspaper from orbit. It's really great.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the agents now go to Polarity Magnetics. They arrive to investigate the company. They speak with a man, Chris Davey. This is Kevin McNulty, who was in Squeeze and will be seen in Apocrypha. He was the antagonistic agent in Squeeze during the questioning of Toombs. Yeah. They discuss the man in the photo, Chester Banton. He tells the agents that he hasn't seen him in weeks and wonders if he wouldn't turn up dead due to a terrible accident.
Polarity Magnetics does, or did, primarily 2 kinds of research. Mostly we were designing mag-lab applications, people movers, bullet trains, but for Chester, that was just a way to pay the bills for the really theoretical stuff he was interested in.
Which was what?
Researching dark matter, quantum particles, neutrinos, gluons, mesons, quarks.
Subatomic particles.
The mysteries of the universe. Theoretically, the very building blocks of reality.
Except no one knows if they truly exist.
Chester was sure they did. So sure, he bet his life on it. This is where it happened. Chester was working to isolate a new particle. He'd been working on it for a year.
This is a particle accelerator.
1/5 the power of the Texas Super Collider in a space the size of a Walmart.
Powered by what?
A couple billion megawatts. Virginia Power loved us.
Exactly what happened here?
Well, the work involved the bombardment of beta particles with an alpha target, negative against positive. Chester had everything set and had started the countdown when he realized he'd made a mistake. There was something that needed readjusting in the target room. Except you can't stop the countdown once you've begun. There was time to safely make the change, but I had left the room for a minute when Chester decided to go in. I didn't realize until it was too late that the door had locked behind him.
Look at this.
As far as I can tell, it burned Chester's shadow right into the wall.
How did he survive?
All I can figure is the quanta liberated off the target have virtually no mass, that they slid right through his body.
Like getting an X-ray.
A 2 billion megawatt X-ray. When I looked at the monitor and saw what was happening, that Chester was trapped in here, I panicked. I cut the power, but it was too late. I remember looking and seeing Chester. He was perfectly calm, almost like he wanted it to happen. Like he was finally going to experience the dark matter he had theorized in some kind of physical way. As if the truth might come into him.
What did you make of this scene as far as the science goes? Because I know this is where the jaws of death will be opening up for this episode. As to my biggest question is, do you feel right now that this episode makes sense after that explanation that Davey gives us? Is it believable for the average viewer? Does this make enough sense to keep you on board? What do you feel for this?
I feel like Vince Gilligan was painted into a corner the moment he thought of an episode where the protagonist was going to be, quote, scared of his own shadow. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that he started off the writing of this episode going, wouldn't it be cool if this guy's shadow was a weapon and it could kill people, and he is therefore scared of it. So we've got a nice X-Files trope, and I will get to answering your question. Yeah, we've got a nice X-Files trope of the villain who is not willing. You know, he is beholden to another event or power or something which is either compelling him to do a thing or he is haplessly doing a thing. This is the dude from Blood who, you know, he's our villain, but he doesn't know he's the villain. So that's Tony Shalhoub in this case, and I dig it. I like this shtick. Mm-hmm. The whole setup for how this power is happening is garbage. I mean, I don't think that to answer your question, I don't think it's very good at all. I think that this is a case of in the 90s, probably there was some theoretical research into dark matter, and Vince Gilligan pointed to that and went, "There we go, dark matter. That's going to be the thing."
That's going to.
And they keep on talking about gluons and negative ions,
quarks, and
and just shoot a lot of electricity at it, and that's going to be our solution. I'm sure any reasonable theoretical physicist would look at this and go, "Yeah, that's some quality bullshit." But the idea of your shadow creating a black hole, ever since they started this episode, I was just like scratching my head going, okay, I didn't expect that. It's cool as an idea. Don't even try to explain it. Explain it with magic, right?
Yeah.
Go magic. Don't go science, because, and this to me is where the episode maybe falls down a little bit, is they decide to go heavy into the science of it. And I didn't buy it. I was like, nah, it's just magic. It's just easier to go that way.
It's really hard to wave your hand at this just because it goes into so much detail that they sound like they know what they're fucking talking about. But
yeah.
And that's I think a success for the episode, but
Sure,
it's also a failing in that
to carry the bullshit. Yeah.
It's like, man, that is you spray painted that shit gold. And it's like, it's like you can't polish a turd. And I'm not saying that the episode is bad, but in this regard, you're dealing with extremely advanced terminology and science that I would bet, and I'm not knocking Vince Gilligan. He may know more about this than I do, but I would venture to say he's not qualified enough to write about such a in-depth topic if he doesn't know all the ins and outs of it.
I think it's impossible, though. I think this is an impossible exercise for him to find a way to justify scientifically how a shadow can create a black hole. I think he's just confronted with the problem of, no, this is just what happens.
This is what happens.
Don't try and come up with an explanation. Listen, the guy is confronted with this problem, and it's a really interesting problem. The writing difficulty is to come up with a reasonable explanation for it, and I don't think that they need to. I think it's an interesting take that they try to with the idea of dark matter, and they say that this is his vanity comeuppance, that he is hoist on his own petard for being so slavishly interested in dark matter that now he is going to be cursed with this problem. So from that point of view, it's there's a catharsis, a pathos, whatever. He has this crutch of this problem, and I get that's what the episode is about. The why doesn't even matter, and it just raises more problems than it solves. And my big issue with the whole scene in which this happens is that Scully takes one look at this thing and goes, "That's a particle accelerator." I get you're the science lady and that's your role, but based on what? Does it literally say particle accelerator on it? That would be useful.
Yeah. And this is admittedly this set is a step up from the play school science lab we had in fucking EBE or whatever that was in the school gymnasium. But I don't know how you could look at this and be like, that's a particle accelerator.
And the idea of having one in a commercial district in Richmond, Virginia, or whatever, it's like, just hanging out millions of watts. You're going to be in a business park way out of town or something.
Right. So what I want to pull from this scene, and it could be final thoughts. I'm just going to do it here.
Sure.
I would say this is evidence of Vince Gilligan himself painting himself into a corner where
absolutely
he chose to do this very extravagant thing. And it's just, if you think about it way too hard, or maybe not even hard at all, because it's right in your face, it's just too much for the episode. And you cannot explain this in a way that's going to make the general audience go, aha, that makes sense. And does it kill the episode? Absolutely not. But I will say it's evidence of him as you said, cutting his teeth for the X-Files and finding his footing. And I think from here on, he does a really good job, at least most of the time, in consolidating his episodes and making what we need to know the priority. And it's evidenced by fan reaction, right? He is one of those writers that people rally behind. Not to mention, he's got 2 AAA series after the X-Files that he's written himself.
Yeah.
So he is very capable. But in this instance, 1995, he was, just starting out, getting the feeling for it. He was not a mainstay writer at this time. So this got his foot in the door, and it was good enough. But I think he just slipped up here where he tried to give us too much information, and it ended up confusing us.
He may also have had some script assistance, with his first outing to sort of patch over the obviously technical stuff and be like, well, they need to have their agents they're investigating. They need to have some kind of result that they can point at or give some kind of answer to the nerds in the audience who are going to be like, well, how is this happening? And as I said, I'm sure dark matter as a theory was hot in the 90s, and they're, like they pull stuff from the headlines to get into the episode. It's just too much. It doesn't really work. And as to your point of his writing style, like both Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, much simpler in their writing style. Like he does not devolve into complexity for how the episodes progress. Like, their virtue is that they're easily understood. Mm-hmm. So that's probably the takeaway here is like, too much. And this whole notion of a particle accelerator blasting somebody and giving him a superpower. Like, I know when CERN, the large particle accelerator, was first being tested, there was this case of people asking, well, what would happen if you put your hand in front of that? You know? And the physicists...
Chester Ray Banton is what happens.
Exactly. You know, we don't get to have that answer for a while, but the physicists that were interviewed were like very coy on the answers. They're like, I'm not sure I know, but I think nothing. I wouldn't want to try it just because there's a lot of power involved in this.
I value my life enough not to try this. So
yeah, there's a lot of safety warnings at play here. So this is clearly the idea of like, well, what would happen if you put a dude in front? I mean, if you stand in front of a microwave tower, you will bake. So I exactly. This is probably on point, but I don't think it would give you killer black holes in your shadows.
Yeah. To your point, I think that kind of uncertainty in science, and that opens the doors for fun, creative writing and what could happen. But again, this I think would just, it's taken a little too far with the explanation because unnecessary, and it just confuses the episode a little bit.
I would have gone with magic or demons or something.
Yeah, I mean, at worst, you would have had an X-Files Marvel comic episode where there's really no explanation necessary. Oh, he was bitten by a radioactive spider or something. It's like, that's all you need in a comic book, right? You don't need this super scientific explanation that verges on reality just so you can accept it. No, people accept it, you know? So I think he could have gotten away with something much simpler.
Yep.
So, okay. We had that scene. The Dr. Davy removes himself after telling the agents all this stuff, visibly emotional. Chester has this accident. He's got this little spray painted shadow on the wall. It's adorable. I think, however, once they hired Shaloub, they could have added a little frizzy hairdo to it because that is a little too bald for me. As the agents discuss the case and what could be happening, we see Davy listening via speaker surveillance at his computer desk, implying something sinister, Andrew?
He's a baddie.
Uh-oh.
Okay, another rules of the game element here is, and we don't see this till later, when the particle accelerator works, it vaporizes the person ultimately that it's pointed at. So they disappear. Mm-hmm. But the implication of that, and again, this only works in the rewatch. Like in the first watch, and maybe that's another trademark of the X-Files, they throw so much stuff at you. It's kind of a roller coaster. You just kind of get half of it and you're like, oh, okay, science is the problem here. You know, you don't get enough to sort of question in the moment. It's only afterwards that you sort of maybe put pieces together. And again, when you're watching it, you're not thinking about it the same way. You only think about it like this in the rewatch. But I think that the rules of the game suggest that when Banton is blasted with this thing, he's transported somewhere because he's missing. You know, the doc, Chris here, he thinks that Banton disappeared, 5 weeks ago and expected him to show up dead. So there's an element that's missing in this episode that Banton is blasted with the particle accelerator, disappears, but ultimately shows up somewhere else because he's not dead.
That's interesting. I never took it that way. I guess I always filled in the gaps in my own head that it happened. He flipped out and fled from the building before anyone could get anywhere near him. Not that he knew something was happening, but just that he was freaked out. I never.
Except that Chris has to lock him in. He gets accidentally locked in by the timer or whatever.
Yeah, but when it is done, it unseals, right? I would imagine. Well, I'm sure he would have let his friend out when he was able to.
So he's lying his ass off here, is he?
Well, I don't know.
He's a baddie.
He's a baddie for sure.
Yeah.
Where I always took it is, okay, so the accident happened. He was released, and Chester ran off. There was at the moment, I guess there were no shadows near him. I never took that he actually disappeared and reappeared somewhere. That might be the case. I never thought of that. But why then when the agents are there, why would Davey say, I was just assuming he would show up dead. Why would he think he would show up somewhere dead?
If he's a filthy liar. He's a lying liar. He's a bad actor.
Maybe it's bad writing. I don't know. Maybe you're right in that he was actually teleported somewhere. But I always thought it was just like he had this crazy thing happen, and then it was, they parted ways that day, that evening, or whatever, and he hasn't seen him since. Except that
at the end of the episode, when Chris is put in, the body is put in there. They Mulder and Scully see it get zapped out of existence.
Yeah.
So it's just one would assume if that was Chester in there, that is what happens to him.
That's fair. I guess I always chalked it up to the convenient "it only happens to certain people" thing.
Oh, there you go.
That's where I went.
I'm satisfied. Yeah.
You could very well be right, sir. That's a good point.
I never have enough data to establish whether I'm right or not. All right, we got to keep moving.
Let's keep moving. We are at 55 minutes already. So we go to the train station. Mulder is sitting in the location of Chester on the security tape. Scully informs him Detective Ryan is having the prints checked against Banton's. She brings up the important stuff like lack of motive, murder weapons, and the fact that they just don't have enough information here. Mulder is still staring at the floor and notices that he has no shadow. There's diffused, soft light in the station. And just as Mulder has his revelation, Dr. Banton rounds a nearby corner. They spot him, call to him, but the man bolts. They chase him into the darkness of the train yard. He tries to lose them by boarding and deboarding the car. Once the agents pull their guns, though, it's over. They're all of them cast in deep shadows between the trains. He begs to be left alone as Mulder steps closer. He is mere inches from Banton's shadow. He stops him, tells him it will kill him. It doesn't care who you are.
It's my sentient shadow.
Mulder takes a leap and shoots out the overhead lights just before Scully approaches her death as well. It's a short but tense scene, and Tony Shalhoub gives a credibility to this role that is greatly appreciated, in my opinion. As we've already kind of sucked him off enough, he's very good at his job.
Yeah.
But you can tell just in this short scene that this man is just trying to survive and keep a lid on the madness he's found himself in.
Well, and I like that he seems to have a moment where, oh my God, thank goodness somebody finally understands what I'm going through, and they're not just all stupid, because they've been all stupid up till now. And worth noting, Mulder can finally hit something with his gun.
When he needs to, he is accurate.
He is super accurate, yeah. But no, it's a great scene. I like the setup of the scene. I mean, again, we've hammered this episode pretty hard for the technical stuff, like how this works. But if you disregard all that stuff, I like the setup of it because we instinctively know these folks are in danger. The scene is playing out exactly the same with Mulder and Scully as it played out before with the two cops. So there is this show don't tell element of they're in danger and they don't even know they're in danger because we know what happens as this episode progresses. So how are they going to get out of this? The series is not going to end here with two puddles of black dust. It's going to get out, but how? How are they going to solve this puzzle? And Mulder figuring it out and destroying the light bulbs. That is our solution, and it's a nice twist.
Very nice. We go now to the Yalof Psychiatric Hospital. Banton is placed in the institution, insisting on soft light for his room. It is the only way he'd let them open the door. Inside, Banton looks like he's talking to himself a little bit. He takes a long drag off his cigarette as the agents question him.
How can you even begin to understand what it's like?
We're trying to understand.
Living in a train station day and night, living like a bum. Afraid to fall asleep because of what might happen.
The accident in the lab, the quanta bombardment, you believe that altered you physically?
You could say that.
Can you tell us how?
Even if I could, you wouldn't understand.
But it has something to do with dark matter.
It has everything to do with dark matter. My shadow isn't mine. It's like a black hole. It splits molecules into component atoms. It unzips electrons from their orbits, reduces matter into pure energy.
That's how you killed Gail Ann Lambert?
Wasn't me. Gail Ann was my colleague. The night after the accident, I went to see her. I was just standing in the doorway. I was looking right at her. And then she was gone.
You have no control over it?
If I could control it, do you think I would let it go around killing people? All I can do is study it, try and divine its true nature before they do.
They?
The government. They're after me. And when they find me, they're going to do the brain suck they've just been dying to do.
Brain suck. For the purpose of?
For the purpose of stealing what has taken me years to accomplish. And don't think they wouldn't kill to get it.
What if they killed you, then wouldn't your shadow just
disappear? Who knows? That's why you have to get me out of here. If I die, there could be nothing left to tether this thing.
And one of the things that struck me on this scene is even with no shadows, we can see Banton's hesitation to be near anyone.
Yeah.
And I think it was a really cool little taste. You know, as Mulder approaches him in part of the scene, Banton kind of skitters away around his bed with very little subtlety. He's like, I don't want to be near anyone. It's really neat just because in this short time he's been dealing with this, we can see it's just completely changed this man and his habits, and he can't handle the presence of another human being because of what could happen.
All right, Mike, at this point, I have a question for you. And
Yeah.
it is a question that I have raised in a bunch of other episodes, and it is this.
Uh-oh.
Often we have these scripts which show us the point of view of the villain as well as the point of view of the agents. And sometimes we have scripts where we don't get that. We just get the agents pursuing, and then ultimately there's confrontation.
Mm-hmm.
And as you know, I have this penchant for, would this be a better episode if we didn't get this point of view? If it was, or perhaps in this case, less of a point of view. If it was, in fact, the agents are pursuing, and then we get this confrontation, or less of the human angle of Tony Shalhoub. I mean, it would be a shame because, yes, his performance is very good, and that kind of makes the episode. But I feel like because we know he is unaccountable for his actions, it takes away from some of the tension, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we have Mulder saying, we've got this guy hunting these victims. You know, are these, is this a, you know, he doesn't say terrorist or something, but, you know, is he a really bad actor, an evil person doing this? You know, we don't know why, but we do know why. From the very beginning of the episode, we understand that this is a guy who is not in control of what's happening to him.
Yeah.
So I ask you, it would be a different episode. Do you think it would be better or worse?
That's a tough one because I think it could work really well if the agents are coming across the evidence and then finally we get to this point where they meet the man behind what they've discovered. It would be a completely different episode if only for, as you said, we know generally from the beginning this man is not doing anything malicious. But if in your
In my version.
in your version, we would assume for half the episode or longer that the man behind all this weird stuff is doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
So this scene, we would have to essentially choose whether to believe him or to assume he's actually evil and he's playing the agents, or it would be just such a different episode. I think it could be good.
I think so too. Like they've fallen into this trap of giving us a likable villain. You know, like you feel you're in his shoes going, oh my God, what would it be if I had the shadow that killed people? You know, my life would be different, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like it would be, I think it would be a better episode if you wouldn't lose some of those elements, because eventually you do get this moment where, again, halfway through the episode, we've caught the bad guy. You know, shouldn't this be game over? But it's not, obviously. We've got a lot more episode yet.
I think it would make an equally compelling episode just on the fact that for, again, half the episode, we're thinking this guy's doing it on purpose. There's a motive behind these killings. Oh, wait, no, we find out, and the episode, for whatever reason, tells us that we 100% have to believe Dr. Banton and that he's not doing this on purpose. That would be exciting, just to be like, whoa, the script flipped, and now we have a different perception on what's going on. So how is this going to resolve itself?
Yep.
I think that would be pretty cool. So let's get to writing that.
Yeah, let's call up Vince Gilligan and tell him that he has an opportunity.
Vince, we're going to give you an opportunity to fix your first episode. Two nobodies have decided that we will give you the opportunity.
Yeah, he'd go for that, surely.
So the interview is unfortunately interrupted by Detective Ryan, who shuts it down. Her boss is there, Detective Barron. He's big dicking and wondering why the FBI is involved. Despite having caught the suspect, he's not happy and has no clue that Detective Ryan has actually called them in.
Classic case of no one seems to recall inviting the FBI in on this case.
Yeah. Just like every other small-town detective. I don't recall you being asked. Mulder spars with him a bit and tells him he doesn't understand the sensitive nature with which to handle Dr. Banton. They find out the doctor is going to be transferred to the city jail, and Mulder hits the roof. Detective Ryan is shutting the agents out herself, claiming she knows how to handle it from here. Sensing the shift, Scully removes herself and Mulder from the conversation. As Detective Ryan passes Mulder, he grabs her arm and reiterates that Banton needs soft light.
I'm not going to tell you why.
I'm not going to tell you why. And she apparently just kind of dismisses it.
Yeah.
Mulder and Scully argue about Detective Ryan's motivations in this scene, and Scully sympathizes with her as a woman trying to make it in the boys' club. Despite that, the FBI has no authority anyway. So she's willing to just let it go. And
I feel like that's one element of the episode that they sort of nailed onto the side, but it is not very well explored. This idea of, you know, women trying to make it in the boys' club. It is a thing, surely.
Absolutely,
it's a huge deal in the 90s. But maybe this is a case of just too much in the episode, because I feel like it gets lost. You know,
it's not. Let me say this without being offensive. It is worth exploring, but they did not do it in a way that is worth anything. If that makes sense. Like
it does, yeah.
It's just kind of there. And we understand, I think Scully could be sympathetic to her student just because she's her student. It felt like it was supposed to be making a point that didn't really jive with the episode so much as just, I don't know.
Well, ultimately they don't really help her. They sort of back off, because that's ultimately, I think, what Kelly Ryan wants is to be left alone to try and do this herself. So sure, but like they know what the stakes are here, and they are walking away. It's like, okay, hands in the air, saying, I guess you got this under control. You know what you're going to do. This guy gets a hard shadow on him, and suddenly you're going to have a lot of dead people, but go for it. You know,
you go ahead.
I mean, I feel like this is an opportunity for the FBI to take their big dicks out and go, no. This is not your average offender. Here. This is a national security implication, and we will intervene now. Thank you very much.
Right. That I think would be an interesting take on this.
Yeah.
Because, this is well beyond what a regular police department could handle. And at that point, like you said, it's becomes much larger in scope when you talk about this guy just wandering down the street.
Yeah.
It could be devastating. So
walk into a stadium and get behind a spotlight,
It is interesting he didn't call Skinner. Be like, look, we got to do something.
Well, the what ifing can get pretty hard in this episode. Like if he decided they needed to take action to protect the population from this crazy missile, this guy is a weapon, his shadow is this super weapon. But yet he's like, well, I'll call X, the one character who maybe could do something, maybe, as opposed to any number of agencies that could intervene on a fundamentally useful way.
Now that I think about it, that could be Mulder, and I might just be giving the episode more credit than it needs or deserves. I don't know. That could be Mulder's way of identifying with Chester and being like, I know he's afraid of the government. We just heard this heartfelt plea.
Yeah.
So I can't call my immediate superior. Maybe I'll call X who can get shit done. I don't know. But even that, it's like,
well,
that
I look at it from a public safety point of view. It's like, I appreciate you're scared of the government. I'm scared of your friggin' shadow that can just destroy people that touch it. So sorry that, they're going to suck your brain, but it's kind of the price of doing business when you have meddled with the dark matter, my friend.
Yeah, exactly. Mulder and Scully then have a back and forth about Banton's fear of the government and the brain suck. Scully, of course, keying in on his mental health and Mulder taking things on a more human level. That man is scared, and it's not just of his own shadow. He takes this opportunity to head back to this train station as if from nowhere, Mr. X reveals himself and they duck into a stairwell for a quick chat.
It's a chat. Nothing else. Nothing
just
romantic. Just a chat.
This is a really fun scene with Mr. X, as they usually are. I really enjoy it. When Mulder says he thinks the government is out to get him, Mr. X retorts, it's tax season, so do most Americans.
He's got
That's excellent.
That's and this is a great camera angle, too, of looking down the stairwell, heavy shadows, like, nicely done, sir. This is
very nice.
Well set up.
If there's one thing we can always count on with Mr. X is that he's always business. The men exchange information about Banton, and Mulder tells him he is, in fact, a very dangerous man. But Mr. X regrettably says he can't help Mulder. The last time he did, he exposed his identity to Mulder's associates. He demands Mulder only contact him when absolutely necessary. So back at Yalof, the lights in the hall are flickering. The nurse is at her desk as the lights suddenly go off. She is met with a flashlight in her face to obscure Mr. X's face. He's there to transfer Chester Banton due to the power outage, literally seconds ago. So he's got a crew doing this whole thing.
We just happen to be in the area.
I just like that that's his explanation. It's just a joke. I think he's like, due to the recent power. Like he's supposed to be telling her, well, I'm going to say this without saying it, but there's been a major change of plans and you don't want to ask me any more questions.
That's right. Why don't you just stand at your desk?
Due to the 3 seconds ago power outage, there's been a change in plans. So
I'm surprised she didn't get a bullet through the face, honestly, with the way that X dispatches people. Like,
yeah. I can't see him having too much discretion, but apparently he does in this scene.
Mm-hmm.
So Mr. X hunts down Chester's room. He sends in 2 agents to start removing Chester as X stays in the hall. Suddenly, the lights come back on and the 2 men are toast with a quick flash of light. I love this scene because Mr. X is shocked, actually caught off guard and unsure of what to do. He peers into the room. The camera pulls in on the newly gagged Chester Banton, who is looking down at his latest accidental victims, and then his eyes move up in the most sinister way to meet Mr. X. I fucking love that shot.
Well, and the shadow, the moving shadow is like, this is the villain. Yeah. Yeah, it's well done.
Yeah, he makes a slow move towards the door, and Mr. X backs up and aims his gun at Chester to keep him at a distance. He drops his aim and lets Banton run away, truly amazed by what has just happened. That scene right there is one reason I really love this episode, because how often do we see Mr. X caught off guard and at a loss of what to do? Never.
Yeah.
He does this for a living. And you can say he was caught off guard by Skinner in that episode. And then they had their little brawl, but he very much knew what he needed to do. Get through it with force. And that's what he did. But he has never seen anything like it in his life. So it's really exciting to see someone with so much power be so concerned about what he's been faced with here.
There's so much good stuff about X's involvement in this particular case. And the first is that he out and out lies to Mulder. He's like, I'm not going to help you. I don't know anything. Don't call me. I'll call you. I am passionately disinterested in your case. And the very next scene, he's like, I am really interested in what you have brought to me, and I am going to get involved now. Whether he knew about it in advance or not is up for debate. I'm assuming he didn't. And this is like, okay, I see an opportunity. I'm going to say I'm not going to be involved, but I am going to go and involve myself. So I'm accepting of the fact that the agents are completely amateur in their plan to go and grab the good doctor.
Right.
Like, nobody seems to have made a report anywhere of what the danger is.
Yeah.
Like, Mulder doesn't tell Kelly Ryan why you need to use soft light, maybe because he doesn't think people will believe, but like, there's a lot of evidence that shows how this happens. It wouldn't take much for him to say, yeah, his shadow kills people, so let's put him in a body bag.
Well, and it also wouldn't do any good at that point. Detective Ryan is in front of her boss, right? So she's not going to take some cockamamie explanation that this man's shadow will kill you. It's almost not worth saying it, maybe. Maybe that was his approach.
It's just easily provable, though, is the problem, right?
It is.
I understand the hesitation and that people might think you're crazy, but at the same time, it's so demonstrable. There are bodies. The body count is racking up. It's like, yeah, you may not believe it, but really, put him in a body bag, not going to hurt anybody, maybe inconvenience him slightly, but there's going to be a lot less death happening as a result. Yeah. So just follow my lead here. Yeah. And when it comes to X and his associates, willing to give them the benefit of the doubt that Mulder has just said the guy is dangerous. He hasn't articulated why. Also, maybe because he won't, he fears he won't be believed. But that's never been a thing for Mulder. He's always spoken truth to power. So I don't understand why he doesn't just say the guy's shadow will kill people. We've even seen him in a courtroom talking about tombs and just going off the deep end about what this guy can do and squeezing into vents. I have a bit of an issue of how the episode is constructed to get to these places. Again, it only makes sense on the rewatch. In the moment, you're swept up in it and you can get it. And I'm okay with the problem because of the great scene it presents. Like, as you say, the showdown between X and Banton is so cool that you're like, yeah, I'm willing to give you, I'm willing to let you off the hook for this because it is such a cool scene. But if you think about it for even a couple of seconds, you're like, yeah, this doesn't track at all. Nothing. And why does the power come on at this moment? Like,
yeah, that I didn't understand. Like,
if the power comes on, wouldn't it be soft lighting in the room? Like, this is the whole deal with that room.
Well, are those the emergency lights? Maybe I'm
guessing it's the only way it makes sense. But that's an oversight. If you know that this should be the safe room, not the kill people room.
But, yeah. Understood. So the agents arrive the next day. Detective Ryan is leaving in a huff. She gives Mulder a look as she passes him. They surmise
it's Mulder's fault.
Yeah, right. They surmise Banton is on the loose again. They deduce he has simply been trying to control this since it happened, and what they need to do is get back to polarity before he does. In a dark office, machines whir. Chris Davy enters the room and is immediately grabbed by Banton, begging him not to turn on the lights. He's determined to fix this thing, likely meaning killing himself in the particle accelerator. As the two men argue, Detective Ryan ambushes them and places Banton under arrest. After begging her to reconsider her actions, it's here where Banton makes the first conscious decision to kill someone. He steps close to Ryan, and she is gone in a flash, absorbed by his shadow. Chris is left speechless by the sight of her death. Banton immediately is back to work. He puts himself into the accelerator, and Chris locks him in. As Banton instructs him to begin, Chris's demeanor immediately changes. "I'm afraid not, Chester." He then reveals himself as a secret agent of sorts, working with someone this whole time to get close to Chester and his work even before the accident. Chris picks up the phone and makes a call to one of his superiors. A gunshot. He falls forward onto the desk. Banton continues to call for his ex-partner with no response. Suddenly, another face he recognizes enters frame. Mr. X.
Dun, dun, dun.
The agents arrive to find another scorch mark on the ground, and Scully is immediately concerned for Detective Ryan. Suddenly, they hear a low pulsing sound from the other room. The accelerator is turning on. They see something on the cameras. There's a man on a chair in the accelerator. He's unconscious, leaning back, and suddenly, with a flash, he's gone. His shadow imprints on the wall next to Chester's. It shuts off. They try to get in, but the chamber has been sealed. Mulder suspects only one man could do this. We go back to the insanely amazing set of the stadium under construction with Mulder.
I knew you would love that.
Oh, man. It's so good. Mulder confronts Mr. X. He accuses him of having killed Banton, getting Detective Ryan killed, and lying to him. Mr. X makes it clear that he has never made Mulder any promises despite his loyalty to Deep Throat. Mulder asks him to promise that this is their last meeting. He walks away angrily. And then it's here where Mr. X offers an olive branch. I didn't kill him. So I guess that's making up. They've made up in their way.
It's such a half-truth, though. It's like, this is your olive branch, is to just sort of imply that you were involved, but, you know, he's not dead or he's alive, dead, but somebody else killed him, you know?
Right.
I don't know. It doesn't really go very, in my mind, doesn't go very far to like proffering an explanation.
To assuage like, any doubts.
I'll tell you this. I didn't kill him. Make of that what you will.
Yeah. He just walks away. Yeah, that's all you need.
I do like the shadow work in this scene. Like you see Mulder walking away and his shadow's on the wall, and then another shadow walks after Mulder, and then we hear it's X. It's a very nice motif in the episode, and well played.
Absolutely. We're at a funeral now. Detective Ryan's funeral is concluding. Scully is in attendance. She offers her moment of silence for her deceased student. Mulder arrives and they talk. She feels a little conflicted. She was a student and came to her for help, and now she's dead. This shouldn't have happened. Mulder apologizes for his tardiness, but he was at the Richmond Police Department. Morris West, the man Chester was trying to contact in the beginning, who we never see, filed a missing persons report for Chris Davy, who hasn't been seen or heard from since Banton disappeared. Mulder is now wondering if it wasn't Banton they saw in the accelerator. Scully asks the million-dollar question. If he's not dead, where is he? It's here where we possibly get one of the coolest ending scenes in the X-Files.
Yeah, it's a good one.
We cut to Mr. X at some containment facility walking down a long hall and peering into a room with flashing lights as a scientist is studying Banton, who is inside. Without words, Mr. X just looks at the scientist and then at Banton. There are nodes taped to his forehead with some headgear contraption around his hairline. The camera pulls into Banton's face slowly as he just stares forward in fear and sadness over what his life has become. It's exactly what he was trying to avoid. He's doused in shadow, then light, then shadow again as a machine pulses ominously nearby. A single tear rolls down Banton's cheek as the camera cuts. The haunting sound of the machine still pulsing as the credits begin. I think that conclusion is fantastic. Because the sound is still going. Yeah, that is dark.
Yeah. Very Vince Gilligan though. I like that you've lost control of your life is kind of a theme through Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul. It's very Vince Gilligan.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So okay, we have exceeded our usual time for this episode. Why don't you give me your final thoughts and we can maybe get to some listener comments?
Absolutely. So my first takeaway is that particle accelerator makes for a great way to dispose of corpses or any kind of evidence. And the government's conspiracy people are going to make great use of that in the future whenever they need to dispose of a body that is problematic. Just poof, it's a shadow on the wall.
Why are we putting all the garbage on the planet here?
Yeah. There's a real breakthrough in evidence disposal right here.
Oh, yeah.
Dark matter, super useful. Now, my other takeaway is the single tear on Tony Shalhoub's face. I'm surprised he didn't get an Emmy for that because it is such a nice capper for the episode. I totally agree with you on that. Yeah, generally, yeah, I like this episode. I think we pick it apart pretty ably to the point where, yeah, there's some problems. Like it's structurally got some issues with it, but I like what they were trying to do is the main takeaway. It does showcase Vince Gilligan's work. It's a very able first effort. I think it's just a bit too much episode. He falls into that trap of trying to use too much stuff. Cut out the Scully angle of women trying to make it in a man's world, and I think it's got time to maybe tease out some other elements. Not that I don't want to have that. I just think that they don't give it enough time to be good.
It's doing it a disservice by not giving the appropriate attention to it. It's just like a throwaway line.
Yeah.
And again, not unacceptable. It's just not, the episode isn't structured around it, so it doesn't really have that particular place. Yeah. So and if they were to make a different episode that would be around that would be totally cool.
There are plenty of cases where they could have exercised their power to create a different outcome. So her saying at the end, this shouldn't have happened, you're damn right, Scully. And with your badge comes some pretty good powers of taking over a case. Like how many TV shows have we seen where the FBI descend and say, yeah, this is our case now.
Yeah, exactly.
You can be an observer if you want, but this is the FBI's case now. And this should have happened here. Like just the nature of the deaths, no police force is equipped to deal with this. So I kind of refuse this whole angle of, oh, well, we can't step on her toes because she's a woman trying to make it in a hard world. It's like, yeah, sure, but the public safety element is just too strong here. Like I don't buy her lament at the end. It's like, you look at that for half a second, you could have done something else.
You could have done something. I mean, and not to even put any more weight on that, but not only could a police department not handle that appropriately, it's doubtful the government could handle it. So that's how big this thing is. It's beyond human capacity to deal with this. We've never had to deal with something like this before, and it is extremely dangerous. So why they wouldn't have stepped in is, it serves the episode, but if you think about it, it's like, yeah, you could totally have done something. Despite how Banton feels about the government, it's your obligation to keep the public safe. And as Mulder says in plenty of episodes, especially F. Emasculata, his main drive is to keep the public safe and keep them in the know. So why wouldn't he take every step to ensure that Banton isn't running free? I don't know. So
I mean the mind-blowing implications of this power that he has, like him in a spotlight turn into a crazy effective weapon. You're
you could kill 200 people.
Yeah.
In one go. just line people up and then boom, spotlight gone.
Yeah.
That's horrifying.
I'm assuming he has to be alive for this to work. I'm assuming if he dies, his power dies with him. At least I hope that's the case, because otherwise, yeesh.
And they keep that vague because, Banton's like, would it go away or would it just untether this thing from me? Which, doesn't really make sense, but, that's where his mind is at the time.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think, once you put him in a casket, the problem goes away. But, you can't just kill it. It doesn't make for a good episode. So,
well, they try and give reasons why they can't get to some obvious solutions. I just don't think that they're especially effective in this case.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But do you have more final thoughts, Mike?
Nothing that we haven't already said. I'll just hit it again. Tony Shalhoub, excellent actor. Yep. The interaction with him and Mulder and then Mr. X, fantastic. I know there are often times where you and I question, did Deep Throat or Mr. X really need to be involved? I don't do that in this episode. I 100% embrace it. I think it's fun whether or not, again, Mulder made the right choice. So, yeah. I think the episode overall, Vince Gilligan wrote himself into a corner and he just tried to do too much with the explanation. If he really backed it off and gave us a simple reason why this was happening, it wouldn't send you, at least you and me, down a rabbit hole of, where does the science stack up? It's okay to write about things that you don't fully comprehend, but at the same time, if you try and justify what you're writing without understanding it or delivering it in a way that is acceptable to the general public, it's like, it's going to derail your train a little bit.
I think they could have done it in a way which was basically them saying, you couldn't possibly understand the science here. Just accept that something has happened. Something has happened. The fact that a pseudoscientific explanation is often the escape hatch for shows like Star Trek. And, I could do it here. Chester says, even I don't understand it. You'll have to talk to Banton. He was so out there. He found this stuff and it's his blessing and his curse. But
overall, I still think it's a good episode and I very much enjoy it. I highly recommend it, if only for the performances. Tony Shalhoub, Mr. X, everything kind of comes together to create a very, very fun episode. So, I would give this a good rating for sure.
Worth it for the review, too. I don't think you need to skip this one just because there's a lot of good stuff in here. And if just for the conversation of what are they trying to do, it's worth watching.
Absolutely.
Easily dismissible. So did we want to go to some listener comments?
Yeah, let's do that.
Well, really, we've really only got the conversation between Aaron Haycroft, Liza M., and Emily Messenger. Maybe I'll start off with Aaron's essay of a response about Soft Light, where he says, I've always liked Soft Light. The origin and manner of Chester's power felt very comic book to me, which is a plus for me at least. I agree with that. And his struggle to not hurt anyone sets him apart from manner of the Monster of the Week villains. Absolutely. I feel the involvement of X in this episode makes sense, and I really like that it leans into his flat-out lying to Mulder about the government having no interest in Chester. The scenes of him trying to kidnap Chester combines with that pretty haunting scene at the end. It has some really dark shadow over X's character in general. X always felt like he was really into this more for himself and more than a little shifty, but seeing him actually take part and bear witness to what amounts to torture of an innocent person, a fact that the viewer knows but the agents do not, really plays into his use in later seasons. This isn't the same X that let the lone gunman go years earlier as seen in Unusual Suspects. Also, writer Vince Gilligan giving little nods to previous episode cases always gets a smile out of me because I am easy and basic.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. I think it makes every single one of us chuckle or smile because that was a throwaway line. Scully's just checking out the heat register, and surely you don't think anyone could come through there. Well, you never know. I mean, it's
good stuff.
In and out, but yeah, really good.
Yeah,
excellent
I agree with
comment.
everything Aaron says there. And I think we've touched on pretty much all of those elements.
Yeah, even the comic book angle. I haven't read these beforehand, so it was interesting to say how we were talking about giving it a little bit more of a superhero explanation. So yeah, good call.
Absolutely.
Liza M responds, so true. It's like some cross between a comic book and a character study. And yes, X is really sinister in this episode. I like both modes of him, unusual suspects, fun X, and intrigue and torture, menacing X. Very much. I mean, you don't get this job without being a little heartless. And to see X partake in the essential torture, like Aaron said, of a suspect, it sucks because we like X and we like to like X, but again, this job comes with that really bad stuff. And that's what the shadow government does in this show. Is in this instance, we get to see one of those firsthand.
Well, I think, though, that it's in this case, though, X is making the hard moral choice.
Yeah. I don't think he's
doing something that Mulder can't do. And I actually appreciate that maybe Mulder knows the right place for Banton is with X.
Yeah. I don't think when that last shot of X looking at the scientist who's studying him, he doesn't respond, and he's got this look on his face where he might feel guilty about this, but he knows this is the safest place unless it's in a body bag. Yeah. Right? So he's keeping this guy alive for as horrible as it's going to be. Mm-hmm. He's not killing the guy because out of maybe some compassion. But who knows? Maybe killing him would be more compassionate. I don't know. But he doesn't look completely comfortable. He's not relishing in, at least visibly, what's happening to Banton. So,
and we only see this element of Chester's new life. We don't see the other 18 hours where he's in a minimum security facility. He's got outdoor privileges and a TV and a whole library of books. He's probably got a pretty good life, other than the hour he's got to spend in the light strobe, menacing, pulsing, horrible room.
Never know. This could be one of those episodes where maybe, what does the second episode look like?
I have that right in my notes. What does the sequel episode for this look? And obviously, Chester escapes. Hard light, yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you very much for bearing with us, ladies and gentlemen. This is a little bit longer of an episode, but I think we had some really good discussion here.
I think we shed some light on the episode. Hey?
Shed some light.
I think we illuminated the plot and
the motives.
We enlightened ourselves to how the episode really worked. And
we hope we enlightened you, audience.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's nice to know there are so many people who think the same things we do and make us feel better about ourselves.
It's like we're living in an echo chamber. It's great.
Yeah, it's great. Well, thank you for listening. We won't bend your ear any longer than we absolutely have to. So, Andrew, please say goodbye if you would like to do so.
Turning off the lights of this episode. Thanks, everyone, for listening.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you liked what you heard, please rate and review on your podcast app of choice. Andrew and I would be eternally grateful to you fine people for helping us expand and get the word out. Also, we've got a killer group on Facebook. Feel free to join in on the discussion at facebook.com/groups/thisisnothappeningpod and become an official member of the syndicate. We do polls and we have questions for every episode to give you guys the opportunity to chime in and possibly let your voice be heard on our recordings. And please join us on our new Twitter at tinhxfilespod, no dash, to stay up to date on everything, moment to moment. Thank you, and remember, don't stop swimming.